Hi, everybody. So, as you know, my name's Rachel. I started in 2020 when I was an online teacher and I was bored out of my ever-loving mind sitting at a computer because I was not built for that. Granted, now I sit behind a table decorating cookies all day, but it's a whole different business. Um, and so I left teaching in 2022 for full-time cookies. And at that point, it was kind of like, we don't have kids right now. My husband and I were just getting married in October of 22, and we didn't have kids, don't have kids yet. When is the best time to jump ship on a consistent paycheck and insurance? It's now. So I did that only fully knowing that I would have to put every inch of my being into cookies. And that was more so than just making cookies. As we all know, we wear 72 million hats as business owners. And that's honestly the way I've found to be successful. I've touched my toes in a little bit of everything for reasons. And as a teacher, I always was in that growth mindset spot where we learn constantly. And it doesn't matter if you're necessarily doing it. If I'm going to a cookie class to learn cookies, that's another thing. But I went to school for 19, 20, at kindergarten, I started wanting to be a teacher. So at that time, I was like 5, like 18 straight years just for school to be a teacher. And now I don't do any of it. But my big thing is that I use a lot of what I learned as a teacher in my cookie business. And that's a huge thing, is being able to pivot. And in small businesses, especially, you need to be able to pivot. And I know a lot of people know that feeling where something doesn't work and you just have to keep trying something else. And that's kind of the way I've stumbled into where I'm at. Where 2 weeks ago, I was literally sitting on my couch and I stopped and I was like, how did I get here? Like, in no way, shape, or form was this the path that I thought I was going to be on, even when I quit teaching. It just genuinely never crossed my mind to be kind of where I'm at. When I put it on Facebook, I genuinely didn't think anything past Facebook for cookies. And then people are like, well, what are your dreams? And I'm like, I got to think about that, because I had no plan other than put it on Facebook. And I've learned that throughout the years, you have your plans that change constantly. Um, when I quit, I was also given the opportunity to get a ticket to go to Wedding MBA. Now, do I only want to do weddings? Am I only a wedding vendor? Absolutely not. But I went and I sat in on catering classes. I sat in on SEO classes on advertising your wedding business. I went on tours around Las Vegas to learn about the wedding industry and all the different aspects of it. Does that immediately apply to cookies? Absolutely not. I was the only one there that was basically a cookier. And everybody I talked to, it was full on catering, full on everything, which is exactly what you expect. However, I didn't sit there and I was like, well, none of this is for me, so I can't use this. I sat there and I was like, how do I make this my business? Because I was at a point where I had just quit 6 months ago. And so I had to figure out what was going to be my full time, what was putting my all in. And the biggest thing that I sat in every single meeting at Wedding MBA was, where is your niche? And that was for every level of wedding areas. Where is your niche? And I started sitting there and I was like, well, cookies are my niche. And then I was like, well, no, it's not, because a million people have cookies as their niche or cakes as their niche or whatever it may be. That's not good enough. And I didn't think that at first. But after I was sitting in for a week at all these wedding conferences and all these different levels and aspects of business, every single person asked, "What's your niche?" And I came to learn at the end of it that cookies was not my answer. And so then I started diving into what's my niche. That's a hard topic, but that's something that every person has to decide. But that's ultimately what sets you up for success, because then you enjoy doing what you're doing because you have chosen an area in business that interests you, that you find fun, that you find enjoying, that you find cup filling. That is what you need to do. And it's hard when you become a full-time baker, full-time anything. You just kind of think, I need to say yes to everything. No, you don't. Because if it doesn't fit your business and doesn't fit who you are or what you believe or how you like to operate, it's not for you. That customer is not for you. And these things are the things that I've had to learn along the way that have gotten me to the fact that I just did birthday cookies for a set of twins, that I did cookies for their first birthday, and now they're 6. So those relationships being built and those kind of niches being honed in on have created the constant comeback of customers, and the dedication and the relationships to my business is why my customers continue to come back. So narrowing it down is hard, really hard. And like I was just saying, I have 150 cookiers in one Facebook group just in the Indianapolis area. And that doesn't count all the people that aren't in this Facebook group. I mean, every day you see on Facebook, I'm looking for somebody to do this and this and this. And then at the end, I need it by Saturday. Totally different, but and you watch the flocking of comments. And as a business owner starting out, you want to make sure you're like, I want to be on that page. I want to be on that thread. I want to be that person that people recommend. Yes, you do. But at the same time, you don't. Because sometimes those people are asking for cheap pricing that you don't want to stoop down to. You can't pay Walmart prices when you come to a small business. People have to realize that. So another way to stand out is using craft ingredients, using specialty ingredients, using small business ingredients, where like PK emulsions and using simi cake and doing simi isomalt and all of that stuff. Just kind of choosing which way you want to go and doing all of that, kind of looking as far as quality ingredients, small businesses you would like to support. Then you get to promote them in your cookies or in your bakes or in your business. Other people in your area then see that you are a small business supporter. As a small business, you're not trying to only shop big box stores, but then you also get to make those relationships with the companies that you're promoting. Because in all reality, you're a small business promoting another small business. And yes, maybe that small business is bigger than you. 99% of the time, they probably will be. But the amount of exposure doesn't really matter in that sense when it's quality exposure. Because small businesses want other people that care about their products to be receiving them. Just like Deb will turn away anybody if she doesn't think that a blue is right for them. That's how you have to be in even baking. And it's hard to turn people away, and it's hard to do that. But when you pick your kind of tiers that you want to stand on and that you want to build your business on, that's where you stand, and there's really no question about it. So with mine, I am a perfectionist. I am OCD. I am so like, I will sit there and I make an extra cookie of every design just in case I have a slight mess up because it bothers me. But doing that, then making sure that my pictures and my posting and my advertising capitalizes on the fact that I strive on the small details. I strive on getting it meaningful. I strive on getting it perfect for the customer. Not perfect for Instagram, not perfect for me, not perfect for Sally who has a comment on Facebook. I want my customer to be happy with my high quality ingredients that I can stand on, I can stand proud on. And through the follow through of all of that creates the business and the customers that start to flock to you. So, kind of pivoting in a sense, my niche is really that perfectionism, that high quality, that I will take 12 hours to do your cookies and they will be literally perfect down to the T of how you would like them. I will work with you on the specific shade of everything, of all the colors. And that is what my niche is, that perfectionism, that high quality, the bright colors, the bold details, the connection of the work to the customer, where that's where I get those repeat businesses. But then on top of repeat, you have to also be getting new business. And that comes in my brain on what you do in your day, how you go about each day. Like how I said went to the wedding expo. I've gone to home shows. I've gone to an ice cream show that they just had in the area. I go to homemade markets and I just go and I talk to the vendors. Not forever, like I talked to the blue vendors. Thanks, my friends, for answering my questions for 28 hours straight at CookieCon. I was probably the one that they walked up and they were like, "Oh, she's back," because she has a million other questions. But when I go to these other vendor shows, I just like to talk and communicate and network. And not in the sense of, I want you to buy cookies. It's more of learning about each other's businesses and learning maybe how this podcaster in our area, I was just casually chatting with him one day when I went to get ice cream at the store he manages. And we were just chatting and I mentioned that I would love to be on the podcast in like a casual way. Like we were talking about the podcast, and he does all these different small business restaurants, but they all have brick and mortar buildings. And I was like, oh, I would love that opportunity, but I know I don't have a brick and mortar building. Like, not in a, I expect you to offer this to me, in a, I think it's a really cool opportunity. And I wonder how I could seize that opportunity, even though I don't fall into that category. And he looked at me and he's like, well, there's no really reason why we can't do non brick and mortar stores on the podcast. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And he was like, well, I really enjoy small business aspects of it, but I also need to recognize the fact that all small businesses can't have brick and mortar spots, but they still matter and they still are somebody that needs advertising. And I was like, well, we do, absolutely. And so he was like, why don't you come on? We'll test it out. We'll see how it goes. And I was like, wait, you really want me to do that? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. He had not had my cookies yet, anything like that. So I walk into this podcast recording with a box of cookies. And I say, I would like you to try them before you introduce me and do the podcast and all that jazz. I would like you to try this before you ask me questions about my business, because I would like you to be able to stand on my business as much as I am. And he looked at me and he was like, yeah, Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And so we had like 15 minutes before we recorded where we just chatted business, and he tried cookies, and we just kind of formed a relationship that wasn't, will you order cookies from me? Will you do this for me? Relationships come first, orders come second. And that's where I think a lot of people kind of think that they just need to walk up and sell themselves to get an order or to get an opportunity. You don't. You just have to be you in the place that you are, but you also need to put yourself in situations to just have the most casual conversations. Where last week I missed Stacy's live because I was at a networking event. What is a networking event in small town Bloomington? It was literally just a Facebook group of people that were like, hey, we're small business owners that want to get together and just like celebrate the holidays and chat and meet everybody. And I was like, sign me up. I'll be there. Not a single other baker was in this group, which made it really cool because I was the only one baking in the group. And so when anybody brought up, like, oh, I need cookies, they were like, oh, you should go talk to Rachel on the other side of the room. That's how you get out there. You just talk normally about yourself. It's not so much that I was sitting there selling cookies. They asked me what my business was, and I was like, oh, I do cookies and things like that. But I was a former teacher in the district around here as well. So then we start talking about that. And then they start talking about the kids in their lives that they have that maybe were touched by a teacher, things like that. And then they don't see me as a transaction. They see me as a human creating a business, funding my life through my hard work in my kitchen every day. If you're going out there and you're just saying, hey, can you buy my cookies? Why should they buy from you versus the 17 others on the street? Maybe your cookies are delicious, but they haven't tried them yet. The podcast that invited me hadn't even tried my cookies. They invited me based on talking to me and learning that eventually I would like to tie back in full-time teaching with cookies, in the sense where when people ask me, do you want a brick and mortar store? I laugh. And they look at me like I'm insane. And I'm like, if we consider all the things right now and how I run my business, I would never have my home if I had a brick and mortar store, because I'd never leave my brick and mortar. But as my business is evolving, it started as pure customs. Now I'm working with the printer and I'm working with Blue. I have another revenue stream from Blue. Then I add classes in of teaching classes. And I'm slowly kind of working up to what I need, which is ideally, I want to be a board and brush, but for cookies. I would like to do parties, and more parties, and then just have some customs and some corporates on the side. But I don't get those customs and corporates if I don't do all this hard work beforehand and build these relationships. And I just had one of the marketing people at a gas station nearby in town down chatting with me, and she was learning about the Blue. And then she proposed an idea that I could kind of switch into. And I was like, well, I don't have time to think about that right this second, but it's going in my cranium. And that is going to be what happens over Christmas break when I take a break to think about things. So niching down is one thing, but then capitalizing on that niche and then finding the ways that you work in that niche. Where my niche was the perfectionism, the details, the high quality. And then The high quality ingredients came from my relationships with other small businesses, which then creates natural word of mouth advertisement, which then potentially introduces me to different people that have different opportunities for me, like getting into hopefully what I'm working on getting into, which is working with a hotel base in town here and having cookies in all their rooms. It's a small kind of business hotel, but that came because of a teacher I used to teach with, who then ordered my cookies, stayed consistent ordering my cookies, and then she brought me up to her friend who was opening this boutique hotel. And her friend was like, I would like to chat with her. If you recommend her and if you think she's a good human being, on top of the fact that her cookies are high quality and she also tries to use as much small business contact as well, then that is a brand we'd like to match with and promote. So, but that is what I grow in. I thrive in this. I thrive in connecting with my community. That's why I became a teacher. I want my kids in my classroom, I wanted them to know that the sky was the limit on their dreams. I wanted them to know that they always had somebody there that was in their corner. I still tutor some of my kids that I had back in 2018. And it's that fact that like I do their cookies and I used to teach them. And then they potentially bring in another opportunity for me. And it's not that I'm using them and they're using me as a transactional piece. We're actually forming, really like what Debbie was saying beforehand, with people that comment and people that post and people that put themselves out there. You start to maintain a relationship and gain a really like deep understanding for those people and that person, which then turns into, if you have a mistake or if something goes wrong, it's not an end all be all, because it's not often that it happens. And when something wrong happens, but you've already established a relationship with your customer, with your consumers, where you're trustworthy, you're dependable, you're one to show up, you're one to reply, you're one to get that relationship nailed down, where it's almost like, oh my gosh, something went wrong. They're a little bit more forgiving. And that's where you kind of get grace as your home business or as your small business, because we always talk about we just need some grace. We need some time. We're busy. We're exhausted. Things happen. But this is all coming back to the fact that I niched down to my niche being my community. My niche being that I serve my community. I am not here to rob my customers. I am not here to make $100,000 by charging $200 a dozen cookies. We all know we can raise our prices. We all know this. But when you have those relationships with people, when you do raise your prices, they don't care. They understand. So in all this building of business, there's all these hurdles. And getting over those hurdles, you rely on the people around you. You rely on the relationships you've built. I have a baker friend who knows that I am trustworthy and I am dependable. And if she is in the weeds in her kitchen, she will call me and say, will you come help me? Absolutely. But people know that is who I am as a human being. And that's kind of my superpower in my business. And a lot of people want to put their business hats on and say, we need to take emotion out of it, which a lot of the times you do. But when we're talking about small businesses and we're not talking about CEOs that are deciding blindly that 1 million people have to follow the same rule. You are creating your business for you, for your customers. You don't have to do anything else. You just have to be you. Because ultimately, no one's going, if you're not carrying yourself as who you are and what your business kind of believes in, why do people want to come to you? And it's like going to your Tri Kappa. I used to be a member of Tri Kappa in my hometown, which my mom is still a member, and I don't even know if that's I think it's nationwide. I don't remember. I'm sorry if it is. But like it's a adult women's sorority that does philanthropic things throughout the year that donate back to the community. So I volunteer up there still, even, and I will drive 3 hours back to my hometown to go and make those connections. Because what do we know? They're asking me to come up and do a chapter wide cookie class for over 100 people. All because I went up and volunteered with my mom in a group that I used to be in, that now I have a chance to transfer down here into the Bloomington branch, which I'm working on, as well as there's in our town, there's BNI, which is like the business networking. There's also I'm trying to remember the exact name of it, but the Chamber of Commerce. I have been told a million times to join the Chamber of Commerce. It costs money, but it gets you those connections. Where I had the mayor's office email me a few weeks ago. Granted, the mayor's office was asking me for cookies within 20 hours of the email getting in my inbox. And there was no way. It was an IU home game weekend. And if anybody knows anything about college sports right now, IU is number 2 in the nation for the first time ever. And our town is kind of exploding. So I've had copious amounts of IU business flooding in. So I literally was like, I could do these 3 things I have ready for you. Like I have ready that I could turn around in 20 hours. And they're like, we're really looking for this. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I didn't want to turn down the mayor, but they also left it to where this is not the last time we're going to reach out because of how I responded. I gave them opportunities. I was like, I can't do this for you, but I could do this, this, or this for you. It wasn't a flat out no. It was, they emailed me. I picked up the phone and called her. I sometimes will text too much where I'm like, I need you to send me the exact shade of the exact pink that you want for a customer. But then they know that they can put their business, their wish, their money, which a lot of times right now, people want to know exactly where their money's going. And if they know that they're going to be giving it to a business owner that is going to put that money right back into the products that are going to them, it makes a difference. And it might not feel like it sometimes, but it really does. And sometimes you'll have a loss. You're going to have a loss. You're going to have a customer that's not for you. I had one that it was actually interesting. It was a learning moment today in myself, not in a bad way, but in a very good way, where I had a customer reach out, and it was for a really big brand down here. It was for one of our Army bases and or naval bases down here. And I quoted them back immediately with everything. I did not hear back from them for 8 weeks. And it was a 15 dozen cookie order where it wasn't all printed. There was 2 dozen of this type, 2 dozen of this type, 2 dozen of this type. It was all jumbled up craziness. And she hadn't paid a deposit. She hadn't picked her options. She hadn't done anything. But 3 days before pickup, she emails me and says, when can I pick those up? and my stomach dropped because the last thing I wanted to do was drop the ball on a huge customer. But I looked back and I had done my fair share of communicating. I had emailed her back, I had followed up, I never got a response. Then I ended up making one of her items for her. And then this past week, this was 2 months ago. Then this past week, I'm scrolling on Instagram and I'm like, wait. And I scroll back up and it's the company that I had quoted 2 months ago. And another cookier in my town had done the cookies. I started clapping. I was so happy that somebody else had done it because two things. One, I never wanted that business to ever not get their cookies. It was just an impossible feat that she gave me without any notice of anything with the amount of details that she wanted. These cookies were the ones that were just put out on Instagram. I actually chatted with the baker because I'll get to it, but I chatted with her and she said they just went out a few weeks ago. So they ended up changing course and getting cookies later. Totally fine. But the other thing is that this baker loved the brand. Her husband works for a technology company that works with this major umbrella brand. This brand to me meant nothing. It was just another brand, another customer. And that's okay. But I quoted them and then things didn't work out and another business in the area picked it up and it was their customer. It was something they enjoyed doing. I really didn't want to have to pipe motherboards. It was for a company that creates motherboards for computers and everything. She wanted them all hand piped and gold detailing, and she wanted 12 different motherboard designs. It wasn't something I was interested in. It was something I was going to do for the customer, and I was going to do it for the best of my ability. But in the end, it didn't work out, and another business picked them up, and I'm still over here cheering on that business. Being connected to your other people in your area, even if they are in your same category, helps you more than hurts you. There is, like I said, I have 150 people in one space, just in that one Facebook group in Indianapolis, not all of Indiana, 150. Think of those Facebook posts where they ask for a local baker. Think of how many more people get on there. But you're still flooded with business. And that is because you have maintained your relationships. You have stood tall on your business. You have put out your product, that what you get into it. You're not posting pictures of somebody else's work saying these aren't my cookies, but what do you think about these? You are putting in all that work. You are doing every bit of authenticity to go in that brand. And ultimately, that's where your longevity comes from. Because if I know that I have to take a break, say I have a baby and I need maternity leave, if I didn't have those long-term customers that knew that as soon as I can get back in the kitchen, I'm getting back in the kitchen and they want to support me, my business is gone the second I say, toodaloo, I'm going on maternity leave. I might as well close my doors. But because of the fact that I have maintained those relationships and really just started cultivating all these different areas, that is where you're going to be able to create longevity in your business, and how I've been able to create all these different opportunities where Blue, I'm talking to one person about printing corporate logos. They say, how much can you do? And I'm like, I can do whatever amount you want. And they're like, well, not me, but I really have had a positive relationship with you. I don't have a part in your, like a portion that I need to order from you right now, but I have somebody that I'm going to throw your way. The amount of times that I've had that happen is uncountable. There's a different word for that, but I'm really tired and my brain is not thinking about it. But regardless, that's the way to create that longevity, to create these random business opportunities where I'm doing a customers for Airbnbs. So I just realtors, Airbnbs, my house realtor, I talked to her. I said, "Hey, do you want cookies for a house closing?" She was like, "Oh, that's a good idea." I make her cookies for the house closing. Then the person that received those cookies for the house closing, they have a child and they now have somebody that they already liked the cookies from. They know that the cookies tasted good, which half the time with decorated cookies, you're going to have the people that are like, "Did they taste like cardboard?" I promise you mine don't. But before they even spend the money, they've tasted my cookies and they order from me already. And since my realtor, who I trusted, sold their house and they trust their realtor, and she recommended me, then we have the trickle effect and the domino effect of getting a new business and getting a new customer. That's when I then start talking to more realtors because she has got friends like that. And then I start talking to all the wedding planners. And then I start talking to all the hotel managers. And when I go somewhere, I'm just going to take a cookie and I'm going to give it to the receptionist. It doesn't matter if that receptionist eats it and throws out the package. It doesn't matter. I had an extra cookie that was around and I got my name out there. There have been a few times when new businesses have come in and I've just printed their logo on a cookie and dropped it on by, introduced myself, said, "Welcome to Bloomington." And it's a 30-second conversation with the receptionist. But I leave my card, I leave a sticker, and people start to come. Putting your brand out there in the most random ways helps. I carry this water bottle around with me everywhere. This went to Canada with us. Nobody in Canada is buying my cookies, but I'm walking down the airport like terminal and somebody saw this on my backpack and I heard them make a comment about like, "Look how cute that sticker is." It's the most random things that you do that put yourself out there in a natural way that you don't have to be like, "Hi, I make cookies. Please order them. They taste good. I promise. Okay, bye." And that's not somebody people are going to remember. But when you do something memorable, like Stacy's talking about how that sticker goes everywhere with him. I spent $20 on Sticker U and I got 500 waterproof stickers and I made my logo Goofy. I literally just took my logo and put a face on it and put a piping bag in his hand. That's all that I did. And that brand recognition all the way through, people start realizing it. Where I go somewhere, just to this networking thing this past Tuesday, I said I was the only baker there, but I walked in and when I had my weirdo shirt on, and then I had earrings, I also had my cup with me. People were like, "Oh my gosh, you're a weirdo." I don't care that you called me a weirdo. Thank you for calling me a weirdo. That's part of my brand. And that's part of the recognition. And that's something that I talk about a lot, even when I was teaching. I was trying to get my kids to kind of identify in their writing because it was third grade. So we were trying to figure out how to write sentences and paragraphs and who we are and speak our voices. And I'm like, ultimately, you just have to be yourself all the way throughout your writing, all the way throughout my entire life. Everybody laughs because everything's purple on my life. Yes, it is. You know why? Because my cookie life is purple. My whole life. If somebody comments on purple, I now have a in to talk about my cookies. They just say, I like your purple hair. Well, thanks. It's my brand colors for cookies. Oh, what do you mean? Oh, I own a small business. I do cookies out of my house. That was just a random person in the TJ Maxx line. Now I learn that she's a realtor and she ordered cookies from me 2 weeks ago. Genuinely, that's what you do. You're not going, I'm not going out there and I'm not sticking a business card in people's faces. I'm just existing. Sometimes I walk through TJ Maxx and I have something in the baking aisle, like in my hands. Most of the time it's something stupid and cute just because I like it. And somebody comments on it. Well, now I have another opportunity to talk about my business. There's just all these different ways. That's how I got into the Airbnb space. I was just chatting with somebody. Somebody said, I have an Airbnb. You do IU cookies? I said, yes, I do. They asked me if I would do cookies for their Airbnbs. Awesome. Amazing. Then more Airbnb people contact me. And I had one person reach out asking me to service their Airbnb. Turns out then they started talking with the person who services all the other Airbnbs I service and ended up just ordering through me, through them. So, like, genuinely, there are business opportunities everywhere you turn, especially when you got blue, because you don't even need to make something. You can have an icing sheet. I made $52 just in icing prints yesterday, and it took me all of 30 minutes. She called me and she said, I have a last minute order because I dropped the ball and I wrote it on the wrong date. I need edible images. And I said, send me the images. I'll have them done in an hour. And I made $52 and I wasn't even awake for more than an hour at that point. So it was just, it's creating opportunities and creating spaces. Debbie, do I hear you chiming in?
I was about to. I'm taking notes. So,
Oh, good.
Okay, I want to ask you one thing.
Yes.
There weren't questions or comments, but and I'll share those in a minute. But the one thing that I remember that I'm like, holy crap, this is such a great idea, was your photo booth cookies and how you partnered
Yes.
with somebody, etc. And I know a lot of people know this story, but I know there's people here that don't. So talk to us.
So that came from my wedding expo and my wedding MBA kind of connections too. So when I was there at wedding expo in Vegas, they had photo booths everywhere. And then catering was there and I started having these ideas. And then I saw other people with other printers start doing things. And I was like, well, I want that printer because I want to be able to do that. But then I went to CookieCon and I learned about this one. And I was like, well, I'm still going to make it work. So I got my printer in October and I do one bridal show a year. I don't like to do a bunch of markets, a bunch of shows just because I'm small as far as like custom stuff. But I do one. And my customers know that. And my brides know that. And sometimes my brides will come wait for the expo to come and chat with me and do all that stuff. So my one came up in March and I just said, I'm going to do it. So I called my wedding planners who they organized the wedding expo. And I said, I have an idea. but I need some logistical help because I need a nice photography space with lighting and everything like that um, in the wedding or in the expo hall. And they were like, well, that's going to be a little bit hard. And I was like, what do you mean? And they were like, well, we have you in like the center, like right when you walk in, which is great, except for the fact that there's not really a space to put a nice photo place, but also all my windows were like 20 feet away from me on each side. So lighting and all of that jazz was just going to be a nightmare. And we needed to bring across a million extension cords to plug in all the things that we were needing to plug in. So, what my wedding planners suggested was we're going to move my booth to put directly next to the photo booth area of a small photo booth company in our town. And I was like, okay. So then she connected me with the owner of that photo booth company. He created then a template like he normally would for photo booths or weddings with like it looked like a magazine. Um, and then he took each picture, and when it was taken, it was put on the frame. And then he just airdropped me the pictures straight from his iPad, which is the service that his photo booth ran through. He just airdropped me them. And then the customers walked from taking their pictures over to my station. They picked up a box and we wrote their name on it. We matched their picture to which one they were. And then I had a little sign that said, you can either wait for your pictures to be printed or go wander around the expo hall for 15 minutes or so, or an hour, doesn't matter. Come on back and your cookies will be here waiting for you. And I had majority of people stayed to watch. So I waited until I had about nine cookies, 9 pictures, and I just tossed them onto a template. And this at the time was ultra print. And I had already made my paper template. So all I had to do was switch the cookies out and the pictures on my template creation. Then I printed them out. I put them in a box, and I have a box with like a little window. If I can find it really quickly, I will show you. I got a little box from Amazon. They were 50 cents a piece. And I tossed them in the box and I just laid it flat so that they could see the picture on the top. And then they came by, picked up their cookie, and walked away with it. And I put ingredient labels on the back so that everybody had that. And then they could still get their photo booth pictures from the photo booth person. They had that all set up. But he just group sent me pictures from the photo booth. And I uploaded them to my Google Drive so that I could access them from my blue computer, and then downloaded them, templated it, and put it out there. Another option that I was going to be doing as I was playing around with this, is I was just going to take pictures on my phone and do exactly what they did from the iPad and airdrop them and put them in my Google Drive and print. I did not edit a single thing. And I know there are a lot of people that have issues with saturations, and especially when we go to print pictures, saturation, graininess, all of that has been an issue. But what I ended up doing was Procreate is my best friend. And that ultimately has been what I've put every picture through before printing it. I don't edit it. I just put it into Procreate and then I export it from Procreate. I didn't do that for my photo booth just because of the amount of people and time, but that could be a very easy thing that I could have done at the photo booth because I could have just airdropped them from my phone to my iPad, imported them to Procreate, and then put them straight on the template too. So it wouldn't change a lot. I did have um like depending on the outfits that they were wearing, some of like they were slightly oversaturated in like the pink area or something, but I tried to watch it as they were printing, and since you can edit the saturation while printing, I tried to watch it too and just kind of change it as I saw that maybe some people were wearing bright red and the background was super neutral and faded. So my colors were a little bit higher. And then there was also a black back or a black border. So it was kind of a play of saturations. But I know that my blacks were down towards like the 30s range. And then my colors kind of sat all around the 50 to 80 range as far as saturation colors. But the one thing that I really thought was a super consistent thing as far as photo booth is because it was the photo booth rather than just people sending me random pictures, I had control over the lighting of the photo booth. I had control over the background of the photo booth. So I could make those decisions knowing that I didn't want a bright pink background on a photo booth, knowing that I was going to be printing and having saturation and having people with different colored skin tones, different ethnicities, all of that, worried about that in there. So for the background of the photo booth, we created a pretty neutral. It was just kind of like a cream. It looked like of a bunch of feathers. And then we just did the black outline that kind of looked like a magazine. So I didn't edit anything for the photo booth. However, I altered my space to be able to not have to deal with a lot of those other things. Whereas when people send you pictures to custom print, most of the time it's a random picture off their phone or something, and you're dealing with quality issues or sending it between multiple different types of Mac versus Android versus going to Google versus all that, where thankfully with my photo booth and with the setup that I would set up, even if I wasn't partnered with that exact photo booth, is I'm using Apple so I can airdrop to Apple and then I upload it directly to Google Drive. And that is the best way that I found to not lose quality. When I started to deal with downloading, I have a picture from a professional photographer. And that was one of the pictures I was using to troubleshoot picture issues. And sorry, I lost my train of thought because I saw a comment
You're
and
good. You're
but
good.
regardless, my biggest recommendation for going to events and doing it is trying to control where the pictures are taken and trying to negate all of the clarity issues that could come up or saturation issues, contrast issues before you're just live printing people. Because then you can kind of tweak the saturation based on the person rather than worrying about the background. And that's often what ends up happening when I have a custom image sent to me. I try and neutralize the background a little bit more and edit the subject to be a little bit more poppy or bright, vibrant, so that it can print a little bit clearer. But for photo booth situations, since I don't have the time to do that, I tried to control the background and try to control the lighting situation so that you can be more productive and on a um like
Even
routine.